everything I bought into, everything I've done to myself to get to Miss America, to even be considered for a job like that, is outrageous. Like, that was like kind of my reckoning. I was like, oh my goodness, I have been fighting this one thing when I have fed into every other single thing possible. And to really unravel that thread, like once you pull at a thread like that, you have to, like, I couldn't stop. And it's shifted my entire life, my entire perspective, my entire mission.
Nina, welcome to That Desi Spark.
Thank you.
We're so thrilled to have you.
Thank you for having me.
I'd love to start at the very beginning. When you were young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
This is a loaded question. The first memory I have is in second grade of actually verbalizing what I wanted to be. And it was when the movie Titanic came out. I fell in love with it. I loved the storyline. I loved Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On, to the point where during recess in second grade, I decided to put on a little mini production of it. I sat on like top of the jungle gym, sang My Heart Will Go On with all my little classmates, and like felt like I had just won the Tony and ran to my mom during pickup and said, you know, I want to be an actress. And I remember she said this to me in Telugu, which you'll appreciate. She said, "Champa me the pagod korta," which like the best, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I think the best translation is like, I will slap the words out of your mouth if you say that again. Like,
that's the only Telugu my kids know, by the way.
Really?
It's a abridged version, but Champalu Polagista. So
I love that. Yeah. So hearing that response from my mom, I was like, okay, maybe that's not the best career path for me. And then, you know, I think at one point I said, oh, I think I want to be a doctor. And we would play doctor, and you know, with like my dad and stuff. And my dad was a doctor. And then I got this reaction of like, oh, we're so proud of you. And that feeling when you're that young is like, oh, this is the right path. This is that there is a feeling of like, oh, this is security and safety and love from my parents. And I don't think they saw it that way or even knew that it was happening, but I think that's how I interpreted it. And so once I said it at that age, I'm like, okay, well now I have to double down for the rest of my life until obviously life had took another turn.
Something you've talked about is how aware you were of what made something beautiful or someone beautiful, or what was accepted to look like at a very young age, both in the United States and in India. And is there a specific memory that kind of spurred that in you?
Totally. I think it began with my mom and my aunt. My aunt is very much the beautiful sister. She's very light-skinned. She was like the crown jewel of the family, and my mom is darker skin. She's my skin color. And so I think it wasn't even that people necessarily said it to them. It was the comments that was said around them. It was like, oh, you know, Ceci is so fair. And then Sheila, who's my mom, is like, oh, she has nice features. And it was always in the context of that. But not just that, I think it was just so regularly said by everyone. It's like first descriptor, no matter who you're talking about, whether it's so in your family or even if it's, you know, a celebrity or someone close to you or a friend, like that skin color comment was just always either comment 1, 2, or 3. So when something like that is in the top 3, of course it leaves an impression. And I always share the story, you know, when I was in 3rd grade, going back and forth to India, my first spoken language is Telugu, and I have very close ties to South India, seeing the Fair and Lovely ads. Like that's all we saw growing up, right? Going back and forth. And to the point where I went to a dermatologist and said, oh, can you give me a cream that will make me lighter? And I was, you know, 9, maybe 8 or 9. And so it's so interesting though, because the older I've gotten, I've realized that tanning and skin whitening are 2 billion-dollar industries, and they sell opposite and opposing messaging. So clearly, if these standards can be created, they can also be dismantled. And so recognizing, wait, there's this one beauty standard in India, but then when I would come back, you know, even with my peers in elementary school, they would say, oh my goodness, you're so tan, like I love your skin color. And so recognizing both of those existed was something I was very aware of at a young age.
How did that play out at home with your mom and raising you and your sister? Kind of a similar dynamic, but hopefully different.
Yes, because we were definitely told, don't go out in the sun, you know, like it'll get too dark. My mom would always say, oh, we grew up on like a little beach town in Michigan. So like everyone was going to the beach and laying out, and it was the era of tanning and like laying out in the sun. And that's all I wanted to do. And my mom, she would still let me go, but it was always a comment of like, well, you're gonna get dark. And I was like, okay, well, it is what it is. And so I will say like those comments existed, but thankfully it was never to the point, even when I would beg my family to buy me the Fair and Lovely, like thankfully my mom never used it, we've never bought it, and they would never buy it for me. And so that was kind of where they drew the line, is that they knew this product wasn't gonna work, and they also knew that I think they had the foresight to not use it themselves.
That's great. What did make you feel beautiful when you were young?
Dancing, definitely performing. I grew up classically training in Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi, and I think that was the first time where I felt like I could be myself in a different way, and I just loved being on stage. I also felt like it's a fourth wall. I'm very introverted. I love one-on-ones, but massive groups are not my style. And so I think having just like that unique stage time was something that was so rewarding for me.
You started competing in pageants at 16, and you were on that circuit for 8 years. What made you start your very first pageant?
Ooh, well, I grew up watching pageants. I grew up watching Miss America with my family, and it was one of the few things that we would do together as a family. I feel like we would watch Miss America, the Super Bowl, and the Oscars. Like those were like the three big live things that were happening in the 90s, and it was a different era then. And so that, but also, you know, growing up in both cultures, like India loves pageants. Like, again, 90s, this was the era of Priyanka Chopra, Aishwarya Rai, Sushmita Sen. Like, those were the people that I saw whenever on the billboards and screens, you know, when I was going to India. So I was very aware of that as well. I think the thing that actually got me into it was a friend of mine, and she and I were friends, and she said, hey, I'm doing this pageant, like, I think you should do it. And because I genuinely, like, I was always intrigued, but I never looked for it on my own. And so once she mentioned it and she was like, you should do it, you have a talent, like you're involved in your community, and like it'll be fun to do together. And I was like, yeah, like I was like, of course, like this sounds so fun. And so that was where I got my feet wet, and I didn't stop for 8 years.
Did you win that first pageant?
I did. I did. I remember it really well because, I mean, I was a junior in high school, so I was like, I mean, at that time, I was like, I'm so old, but had a lot growing up to do. But like, I remember it very well because I think the foundation of Miss America organization specifically is so much rooted in interview and how you are communicating and speaking. It's the heaviest weighted portion of competition. So yes, there's of course swimsuit and gown and talent and all of that, but interview was always at the forefront. And so I remember knowing that I had a good interview to begin with, like speaking came naturally to me and public speaking came naturally to me. And so I was aware of that. But after I'd won that first pageant, I was a teen. It was Miss Southwest Michigan Teen. And one of the judges, like you meet with the judges afterwards and they give you feedback. And one of them was like, oh, like you're a future Miss America. And he just said it like so matter-of-factly. And I was like, okay, like what is that? Like, he's like, you have a Miss America interview. And I was like, what does that mean? And he said, there's just always like an X factor that Miss Americas have. And you just have a gift of making people feel comfortable and like you're approachable. And that is a quality you can't necessarily teach people, no matter how hard you try. And so that was kind of something that stuck with me, especially because my name Nina means attainable. And so I've always equated that to like approachable, and that's what I want to be. And so yeah, so that was something that just was in the back of my mind.
What's something you're really grateful for in your pageant journey?
It's a good question. I feel like I have always had to be grateful for so many years. I'm now starting to share the ungratefulness as I'm writing my memoir.
And I love that, by the way, because I think that has to be said, especially now, but maybe looking back on it now, what is the one thing you're like, I'm glad for that?
Totally. I mean, I'm glad for so many things, and I want to acknowledge that so much because my life changed overnight. You know, I wouldn't be sitting here if it hadn't happened. I wouldn't be the person I am today without pageants. Like, I have learned so many skills in terms of walking into a room and not knowing a single person and being able to introduce myself and have a meaningful conversation. Those are skills you're not taught in school, right? Like, you have to learn that, and typically people are learning that in like their first job sometimes, or, you know, when you have to start networking. And so thankfully I learned that at 16. I was sent to appearances, whether that was like community, like Christmas tree lightings, or if it was like an old age home and I would have to go in and entertain, you know, the residents there. It was like, I know nobody and I have to be the person who is approaching them and starting a conversation. And so that is invaluable experience that I'm so grateful for. I would say I'm grateful for the friends that I've made out of, you know, it's like a sorority. Yes, there are a few bad apples. Of course, you don't get along with everyone. That's life in general. But like, genuinely, my Miss America sisters are the few people that actually know what it's like to go through it. And it's a very unique experience. And 3 of them are my bridesmaids. Literally, Miss California, Miss Virginia, Miss Connecticut are my bridal party. And so, you know, it's been 10 years since we've all competed. And they're, you know, at the top of the list of being grateful of the friendships I've made.
I think there's a lot of focus on how to become Miss America and not as much as talked about at what it's like to actually hold that title. What was that year like for you?
It's a lot. You know, the second you hear your name called, essentially you are whisked away to a press conference and it's kind of like rapid fire questions, and you're thanking your sponsors. You have a list of, the organization tells you all the talking points you have to say, all the people you have to thank. You go into that. Then you go into a second press conference and answer more questions. Then you meet with the sponsors. Then you meet with the former Miss Americas. Then you meet with the contestants and state directors and volunteers of the organization. And then basically you get to your suite, which is filled with, you give a list of like 20 people that you want in that suite should you win Miss America. So you have about 10 minutes with those people, and that's it. Like, it was literally my family and friends, like everyone who comes to support you. And then literally they were asked to leave in 10 minutes. It's like 3 a.m. at this point, and they're like, you have to repack your belongings into 2 suitcases, and you're on Good Morning America the next morning. And so literally 2 hours to pack, consolidate everything, wake up the next morning, go on Good Morning America. And I did not stop since that moment. I never went home. You live out of 2 suitcases, so the schedule is very much like event travel. So I would fly into a city, speak the next day, fly out the next day, and like wash, rinse, repeat was sort of the schedule. I think I was home, I mean, I was guaranteed Christmas and Easter off, so I was home those 2 days, but I don't have an apartment. Like, you actually don't go like, you live out of hotels, so you don't have a home base to go to. And so it's an exhausting year. It's really lonely. I mean, it's lonely and it's not, because of course you're meeting so many people and it's such an incredible journey, and I've been able to do wonderful things with my platform and just, you know, the rooms I was in. But yeah, it's quite exhausting, especially when you have to uphold a certain image and you can never have a bad day.
And you were asked to uphold a certain image, being the very first to present a different version of that image. You had the internet abuzz and brought out the worst of humanity, I would say, with social media, just by being crowned Miss America. That must have been tough.
Yes. Yes and no, I think is a better answer, because I was prepared for it. I knew, should I win, that people were going to say comments like this. It happened when I won Miss New York, and so I was ready for it. But I think when I actually look back on it, and especially now, I mean, you know, I won in 2014 to give people the lay of the land. This is when Twitter was in its like peak days. Like no one was really on Instagram. Instagram is not what it is today, and certainly TikTok didn't exist. And so it's interesting time, and I say that to say I was the first Miss America who had a social media handle. And so I think because of the experience I'd faced with the, you know, Twitter remarks and calling me Miss 7-Eleven, calling me a terrorist, is that I was so guarded with social media. Like I never really, I would put out facts of like things I was doing or, you know, and I think as social media evolved, there is this expectation of showcasing your real life or showcasing the behind the scenes and being more vulnerable. And that, I didn't start really doing that until I decided to do content full time, which was a year ago. So even that was very new to me because the image and the perception, I can't just turn on my camera and say whatever I want. Like that was never a luxury that I had because I couldn't. Like I was the first, I was representing so many different brands, organizations, people, right? My community. And so the luxury of just never having the pressure to care about what anyone else thinks was something I was never granted with social media specifically. And I think that was really hard. And it's been a journey for me to even like now come to it.
You said you were prepared for it. What did preparing for that look like?
I think I had all my talking points, you know. I've always said like, yes, you know, I've always believed Miss America's the girl next door. I think that was the biggest one as a brand. I had the choice to compete in Michigan or New York, and I chose New York because I was born in New York, but also, you know, it was the probably most diverse state in the world, arguably, you know, country world. And so I think I knew that what I really wanted to get across is that if Miss America is branded as the girl next door is evolving as the representation and diversity in America evolves. You know, I'm Indian now, but my fiance is half Chinese and half American, you know, have Jewish ancestry. And so there's so many layers of what the girl next door is going to look like and does look like now. And even in 10 years, I feel like that definition has changed so much. And we see the pendulum swing back and forth, right? But I think that was really my main point that I wanted to bring is at least if I can shift the masses of thinking about who that girl next door is, maybe that's a small win.
How did you feel when the year was over?
Conflicted. It's hard because you put so much of it's your whole life for a year, right? And you're constantly eating, sleeping, thinking all things Miss America. And then overnight, like, it's like the spotlight goes out on you and then you see a new person doing your job and like you're replaceable. That is kind of the initial feelings that it feels like, is that you go from being loved and adored and then you're like, wait, like this happens every year. Like there's more. It continues as we want it to. So I think like everyone prepares you for that, and you, especially within my Miss America sisters, and they talk about the transition. So yes, I was prepared for it. I think I will say I had a little bit of a different experience in that, you know, I was fortunate to have the South Asian community, and because sadly there is no one yet who has followed, and I hope that there is another, you know, South Asian Miss America to come. There was a lot I was able to do within our community, and that I was very grateful for.
There's a quote from your TED Talk that has really stuck with me for a while, and it's, "What may have temporarily empowered me as an individual does not empower the collective with the beauty standards associated with it." As you said, Miss America had a very specific look, image, feel. Part of that came with how you looked in every single moment as Miss America. How did you shift when you transitioned away from the crown, from individual empowerment to empowering a collective, which was a part of your platform?
That took years, so many years in between. I think the biggest thing I realized in my own journey was when we started filming Complexion. That was really when everything shifted, because I remember so clearly the night it wasn't the night I won. It was a week after I had won Miss America, and I had dreamed of this moment to the point where I believe in manifestation. if you do, great. If not, that's great too. But like, I really did visualize myself winning the crown, hearing my name called, going into the press conference. Like, I thought through all of those steps before for years. Like, I would sign my name, Nina Davuluri, Miss America 20, whatever. Like, just for fun. Like, you know, like I would do all of those things, and I never thought about. I was so prepared for that. I never thought about what would happen after. Like, I was like, okay, press conference, then we're done. Like, I just never continued, didn't play the tape. And so I think the week after I won, finally, when you're kind of like now settling down and it's sinking into you that you've had this title and all of it, I was at an event and I'm getting ready and I'm in my hotel room putting my crown on. And I was just like, is this it? Like, is this everything I've worked for? Because like, you don't wake up feeling any different. I wish I could say like, you just wake up feeling like different. You don't. Like, I still woke up feeling like Nina. Of course, like you're happy and elated and those feelings are there, but it's not like you're a different person overnight by any means. And so I think that was always there of like, there has to be more. There has to be something more than this. And that's when it didn't really click until Complexion. And I did a lot of things in between, from like hosting, you know, speaking, all of it. I tried a lot of different things, and then Complexion is kind of where it clicked. And that's when I realized, oh wow, like I think I've actually gotten the standard of beauty wrong in a lot of ways.
Talk to me about Complexion, your documentary, which is excellent. You went to India and traveled around India and even parts of the world to talk about color as it pertains to beauty, and not just color, but caste, race, and how people are approaching or trying to hold themselves to these unrealistic ideals that are set simply to make money.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the morning after I won Miss America, there was a headline that said, "Is Miss America too dark to be Miss India?" Yes, like we've never seen a darker skin tone Miss India. And so that was a piece of the conversation happening right after I had won. And then as I went on my speaking tour for several years after, that was always a question that came up within our generations. Like, whether I was at a college, university, corporation, like it was like, oh, like, how did you feel about this piece of, you know, when the conversation around colorism was happening? And so I knew it was something that our generation is still unpacking for ourselves, because theoretically, right, like our parents immigrated here in search of a better life for us, but there's still those archaic notions that are brought along that we are finally saying, why? And that was really where Complexion started, to answer the why, truthfully. Like, why are we doing this? And when it came to actually filming, I really wanted to tell this across socioeconomic statuses, caste, you know, like north, south, all over India. Ultimately, what I realized when I was filming Complexion and where everything shifted was, I remember when I would go to India, I would see people on the streets, or I would see children on the streets, and I would think, oh my gosh, like, I'm very fortunate and I'm very grateful for the life that we have, because that could have been me, right? And that could have been all of us. And when I started filming Complexion, what really shifted was realizing, when I would see these young girls specifically telling me their own stories on colorism, it was like, no, that little girl is me. And that little girl lives inside all of us in some capacity, no matter where we are in the world. And so to really tap into that human side of this story was ultimately where we ended up filming. And I was like, this is actually the stories that we need to show. And so it was, yes, I'm taking you through the journey, but it was really to highlight the stories of these young girls, because we will all see ourselves in them.
I know I certainly did, and it definitely brought up memories of me and my cousins, where for some, I was the darker one, and for some, I was the lighter one. And being defined by that, I think I'm still working through that, and like unpacking that my self-worth has nothing to do with how I look, but really the value of my brain.
But it's hard.
It is hard.
It's hard. And I think that was kind of what I realized in filming too, is that yes, I was fighting against one beauty standard, which was colorism, and that felt so obvious and so personal to me, right? Because we've experienced it. But then when I paused, and I remember, you know, right after we filmed January 2020, COVID happened and we started releasing clips of these, of our film, basically via my social media. And I started a petitioning campaign called See My Complexion, and asking other people to share their stories as well. And I sent an open letter to the CEO of Unilever, which produces Fair and Lovely. It's the hero product, as we all know. And in that letter, I wrote, you know, most people, when they buy a packet of Fair and Lovely, they don't realize they're feeding into their own oppression. The more you buy into it, obviously, like the more it perpetuates the cycle and continues from a capitalistic standpoint as well. And so when I wrote that, I kind of paused and I thought to myself, I think that's actually true of every single beauty product, like everything. And this wasn't, yes, there's the product side of it, right? But I was like, this is also bigger than that. It was everything I bought into, everything I've done to myself to get to Miss America, to even be considered for a job like that is outrageous. Like, that was like kind of my reckoning. I was like, oh my goodness, I have been fighting this one thing when I have fed into every other single thing possible. And to really unravel that thread, like once you pull at a thread like that, you have to, like, I couldn't stop. And it's shifted my entire life, my entire perspective, my entire mission.
I mean, you said in your TED Talk, if we need a product to feel empowered, then we are by default in a state of disempowerment. So for you to take what you first focused on was that Fair and Lovely cream and look at it with really this whole industry as a whole is a remarkable observation to make and to think about on a daily basis, because those choices that we make of is this because I want to look this way, or is it because this is what is expected of me?
And it's so nuanced.
It is.
It's so nuanced, and I'm really trying to learn a gray area, because I think immediately during this like filming process, I was like, I'm rejecting every single beauty standard and blah, blah, blah. But I would be booked as, you know, like as a speaker, and I would have to show up a certain way, and I can't not show up in a certain way with societal rules, right? And so like I was just so, and I will say the one thing that I did my TED Talk without like a full face of makeup, my hair naturally curly, and that was sort of at least a way for me to, I mean, I couldn't give that talk without doing it that way in the first place. But I think like now, as I have, you know, I went from the place of rejecting beauty culture, of feeding into it, then rejecting it, and now I'm like, okay, I'm not opting out of beauty. That's a very different life if you're gonna choose that life, to completely opt out of beauty. But I wanna feel good about it, and I want to participate in it on my terms. And so I think now what I say is that beauty is empowering, but only when you know how and why you're using it. Because I think so often it's easy to just reach for something or buy something because you've just seen it on your feed, or some random influencer is like, this is amazing. And like not even thinking twice about that is what we've become so used to. And we live in a world of overconsumption. And so how can you actually use something where you're feeling really good about it? And that's coming from like, it's layered of like, is it the brand story? Is it how like the, you know, the tactile components of all of these things matter? And so those are the like steps that I think through before I make any purchase, before I recommend any product, before, you know, I talk to anyone about like the beauty world, because you have to look at it. Like, I feel like I have this series called Hotter and Smarter, and like people love it, but like, it's essentially like, yeah, I'm not saying to opt out of beauty, but let's be smart about it.
If you have one hero beauty product that hits all these standards, like values aligned, great story, great product, what is it?
L'Oreal foundation, shade N7, true match. I mean, it is emotional for me because it was the first foundation that I purchased that was accessible. It was in the price point that I could afford, right? I think I was maybe in high school at the time. I remember, you know, I think that's like the first memory I have of it, and it was actually my true skin tone. I think, and it's still a shade I use today. You know, I think it was a full circle moment for me, because also when I wrote that open letter to the CEO of Unilever, I'd also sent it to the CEOs of L'Oreal, Procter & Gamble, and Johnson & Johnson, asking them to basically either remove their skin whitening products or do better with their marketing. And Johnson & Johnson did end up actually discontinuing their line of skin whitening products. Unilever rebranded to Fair and Lovely to Glow and Lovely, which was already a conversation that was happening. We had already known that from the documentary, but at least it was rolled out, right? And the CEO of L'Oreal was the only person who was actually willing to have a conversation with me. And they were very honest and said, you know, we're not taking the products off the shelf, but what can we do better? And I said, honestly, that's all I'm asking, because at this point, I'm not about banning products. I've never been about banning products, because people are going to find a way to use something else that actually is toxic and harmful. So I would rather them have a safe product. This is so much more than that. It's about how do we create a generational shift to shift the ideology for people to not want or desire that product. Like, that's where we have to get to. And so from there, they invited me to sit on their advisory board, which I've been on for 5 years now. And like, that was like, I feel like that was like, I don't cry a lot, but like that was one of those times where I was like, to actually be represented, have a seat at the table of one of the biggest beauty brand in the world. They have over 40 brands in-house, and feel like my voice is being heard. Like, that was truly such a full circle moment. And like, yes, the foundation is like, you know, icing on top of the cake, but I have such an emotional connection to it. So I share that story because yes, like, I want people to know that if I'm going to recommend a product, like if I have a choice and there's a L'Oreal one that's competing with another one, I'm gonna, like, my dollar is going to L'Oreal because of that personal connection. And you never know, whoever your favorite influencer is, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, you never know what emotional connection that they have, personal, and like, yes, they might be disclosing it, you never know why. So I think like, you have to do that for yourself. Like, you have to know those answers. And that's what I try to at least share more in my messaging.
I love that. And I need to look up that foundation now because I'm on the hunt for a new one.
It's a good one.
Good. We both grew up with the, but what will they say? Constantly from our well-meaning parents who love us very much. And it wasn't just a phrase, but it really was a filter in how we showed up to the world, and that what we also dealt with and hid from the world, even hid from our parents. Mm-hmm. Mental health is a very big part of that. I think we both grew up in a, we don't talk about it, it's not for us, we don't have those problems, you have a family who loves you, what do you mean you have this? And I want to thank you for just being so honest about about going through and processing depression, anxiety, eating disorders, because it makes a lot of us feel a lot less alone. And I can also imagine it was kind of scary to open up about it. In an op-ed you wrote, at one point, I ran out of pageants to win, and like any addiction, I craved a bigger and better high to get that original feeling. Over the course of your work, you've connected those dots of your addiction from pageants to social media to alcohol, and what hitting rock bottom looked like and what building back up did. What did getting help look like?
It's a loaded question because I felt very alone in getting help, and I had the privilege to even be able to afford help. I had the privilege of asking for help. I had so many resources for a person in a position like me to be able to have those things, and I still felt incredibly alone and very terrified of the what will everyone else think. And you know, I think what it really came to is that I've seen addiction run in my family, and I think whenever I've shared my story, someone probably knows someone who has struggled with addiction, whether it's in their family or not. And so I think seeing just addiction in my own family, I knew exactly where my path was going. Like, it was clear. And I always say, like, I didn't have to share this, right? Like, nothing bad on the outside happened. In fact, everything was great. Like, I just had a documentary, like, on Amazon, like, everything was fine outwardly. And so I could have just chosen not to share this. And I feel like there was a turning point when I realized I just wanted to be free. And I think the pressure of always having to act a certain way, be a certain way, whether that's Miss America, whether it's our community, no matter what, everyone has some sort of pressure like that, amplified maybe if you're in our community. But I think what I could not go through life anymore was hiding it. And that's when I will say, the sober community is one of the most beautiful communities I've ever been a part of, because like, you check your ego at the door, like everyone there is on one mission, and that is to stay sober. And everyone is just very honest. And when I grew up in a culture that is not honest, to see that honesty is something you really want to participate in. And yeah, it took me time to be able to openly share, even at, when I was going to meetings. I made the decision to get help, and my way was going to AA meetings. So I went to 90 meetings in 90 days. And I was really focused on that, and I kind of just like fell off the face of the earth to focus on that. And thankfully it was COVID, so there was a good reason to do all of these things. But like, once you start seeing people step into their truth, it really changes your perspective on how you want to live life. And I knew that this was a part of me that I wanted to set free in the world. And I did that on my terms. I didn't share it until I was 4 years sober. Is when I did the op-ed. I took a lot of time to make sure that I was in a place, a mentally healthy place, that I could share this, I could talk about it openly. I did not actually, the one thing I will say is I first shared it I did a one-person show last year. And it was called Pretty Naked, and it was really my journey to asking the question, will I ever feel pretty naked? Like, I have a hard time looking in the mirror, and I think, like, I don't know if I can ever, and if you watch the show, there's answers, but it's an ongoing journey. And I remember I was doing that show live, and I did not tell my mom that I was sharing this part. And I really struggled with if I should tell my mom that she's coming to a show where I'm going to admit in a room full of people that probably some she knows, maybe majority she doesn't, but still, she's gonna be there and everyone's gonna know that she's my mom and I'm sharing my sobriety journey during this show. And I decided to not tell her because, yes, like no matter how much work we do, we still have fear. And so I didn't tell her because I didn't want to question it. I didn't want to get cold feet for myself. So it was a choice that I made for myself, like I'm doing this and I don't want to hear anything that could sway me to not do it because I'm so ready to do this. And then when she saw the show and everyone had a very beautiful reaction to it. And it was probably the first time in my life where my mom is not a hugger. She's not an affectionate person. We now like make her do that, but it was the first time that she gave me like a genuine hug. And it's not even hearing that I'm proud of you. It was just like, you did a really good job. And like the understanding of her being able to also release that, to also be like, this is out in the world and it's okay. And also for the people in the audience, who they're like, yes, a lot of them were my friends, but to also say like, yes, like I was Miss America, all of these things happened. And like, if I can sit here on stage and share my sober journey, like maybe you can have this conversation in your home, because I feel like, you don't have to be alone in this. And the more that we can at least acknowledge it in our own homes is really the bigger purpose to sharing.
If you could hear just one thing during your sobriety journey that you now have sort of the foresight to say now, what would it have been?
Life is so much better. It's so much better. Like truly, I will always say like getting sober and choosing to not drink has been the best decision of my life. And the second is marrying my fiance, saying yes to him. Like I'm so certain about that. And it's such a wonderful feeling to have. But yes, when you're in the depths of it, of course it sucks. But yeah, life really has just gotten better, and so many more doors have opened than I could have ever imagined.
You have a lot going on right now. So you are creating content full time. You're getting your master's in vocal performance at NYU. You're about to get married to this wonderful man, and you're a very active Binny to your sisters, 2 boys. What are you excited about right now?
I'm gonna be cheesy. I'm in my bridal era, and like it's something I felt so long. Like I felt it was silly to be excited about getting married, and like one of my mentors was like 15 years married, and she's telling me how much she loves her husband, and it kind of gave me permission to do the same, because I thought to myself like, yes, I'm so excited. I am in a place where I'm just like truly really happy and proud of my decisions that I've made, of the life that I'm building in a way that's so not maybe met expectations in the best way possible. And so I'm excited for all the wedding stuff. I'm excited to dance at my Sangeet night. Like, that is the big thing. I'm gonna sing too at my Sangeet. I'm very excited.
Do you have the dance choreographed right now?
I do not yet. We're getting married in May, so it is my project for January that I was like, I'm setting aside January to make sure I have all the dances. I have a surprise little number that I want to sing that I can't wait to do. And so it's gonna be a good time.
You also just signed a book deal to publish your memoir. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know you're going to have all the stories that you haven't shared yet in that book, but can you tease us with one thing that you haven't maybe shared elsewhere, but people can look forward to reading about in the book?
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually kind of did give you a little teaser already. I haven't quite shared like the full sort of pieces of my own sobriety journey. I will say, you know, another link of this is kind of going deeper into my own family journey. And I think that there's a lot of interesting characters in my family that they're there. They're secondary characters, but they're important players in the book. And I'm actually gonna share a little bit of like mine and Ryan's behind the scenes love story as well, because I think that's important to where I am today now. And so I've always said, you know, even to my publisher and when we were, you know, shopping the book, it was very much like, I want this to feel like a sleepover. Like, you're hanging out with me. I'm gonna do the audio narration to it. I'm very excited about it. Like, you're hanging out with me. I'm telling you this story, like truly like as if you were at my house and we're like watching TV and just chatting. So like, I really want it to feel that way and read that way. So yes, there's ups and downs, but it's very much like, I wanted to write it from a place of love, which is where I'm at right now. So I'm excited.
What's one goal you have yet to achieve?
I would like to see my book become a TV series or like film. That's actually, I initially started writing it as a film, and I realized that there's too much truth that exists in it that needs to live as truth on its own. So I'm starting to manifest that next one because I would love for it to be a TV series.
I'm going to put it on my vision board too for you.
Thank you.
Very woo. To close, maybe you could go back and meet with young Nina. What's something you would tell her?
I would tell her to enjoy the highs a little more. I think I really diminished my accomplishments when they were happening. And I would go back and tell her to just enjoy the times where you can be proud of what you've achieved. You don't have to always diminish everything. And I am taking that advice now into my bridal era, where I am gonna enjoy all of it because it's not gonna be here forever.
As you should. And thank you for taking us along on this journey with you on social media right now. It's been really fun and joyful to watch.
Thank you.
And thank you for just being the first, but not the last, to do so many things beyond your Miss America reign.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. We love you.
This was fun.